Power does not change people. It reveals what was already there, but hidden under fear, uncertainty, and survival. In the world of Game of Thrones, few characters reveal this truth more clearly than Daenerys Targaryen. She begins as someone who has nothing. No homeland, no protection, no certainty about her future. Yet the world keeps placing responsibility, loyalty, and belief on her shoulders. These experiences deeply affected her choices, later in ways that the show lays out with steady clarity. This video examines how her mind shifts as the weight of expectation grows heavier. So, come join us as we trace how trauma, power, and rising suspicion guide Daenerys toward decisions that feel larger than any single moment. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to stay updated with detailed analyses that give you a clearer understanding of your favorite shows. Now, let us begin. Daenerys begins her life as a child without a home. She is born during her family's downfall. Her father, King Aerys II, is killed during Robert's rebellion. Her mother flees across the narrow sea while pregnant with her. Daenerys is born on the island of Dragonstone during a violent storm. She never sees Westeros. She never meets her parents. She grows up with only stories about a world that no longer belongs to her family. After fleeing Dragonstone, the last surviving Targaryens travel through the free cities of Essos. They live under the protection of wealthy nobles who support them for political advantage. These protectors offer shelter, food, and clothing, but never permanence. Once the nobles lose interest, Daenerys and Viserys are forced to move again. The show makes this clear when Illyrio Mopatis tells them he sheltered them as guests in his home in Pentos. Daenerys has lived this way for years. Every city teaches her that safety depends on the intentions of others. Her older brother, Viserys, becomes the authority that shapes her entire childhood. He is the only link she has to her past. He describes their father as a rightful king. He describes Robert Baratheon as a usurper. He insists they are the last hope of their house. Daenerys hears this message so often that it becomes the only history she knows. Yet Viserys does not treat her with care. His anger is quick. His patience is short. His control is absolute. The show repeatedly presents moments where he grips her arm, raises his voice, or threatens her when she hesitates. To him, Daenerys serves a purpose. That purpose is to help him return to Westeros. Their poverty is another clear part of her upbringing. Viserys tells her that he has sold family treasures piece by piece to pay for food and shelter. She grows up with no possessions of her own. She has no influence. She has no allies. She has no way to challenge her situation. Her life is shaped by the needs of survival. She adapts by staying silent and obedient because her brother reminds her that defiance brings danger. Viserys makes a decision that defines her next chapter. He arranges her marriage to Khal Drogo, the leader of a large Dothraki Khalasar. Illyrio assures Viserys that Drogo is powerful and wealthy. Viserys believes this marriage will give him an army strong enough to conquer Westeros. Daenerys is not asked for her opinion. She's not allowed to refuse. The scene where she stands on the balcony, afraid of the life she's being forced into, makes this clear. When she asks what life will be like with Drogo, Viserys tells her he would let 1,000 men and their horses take her if it brought him closer to the throne. This moment reveals how little her brother values her personal safety. When the wedding day arrives, Daenerys enters the Dothraki world with no knowledge of their customs. She is surrounded by strangers who speak a language she does not understand. The celebration is loud, chaotic, and violent. Daenerys walks through it with fear on her face. She does not know what will happen next. Her brother watches her closely, not out of concern, but out of expectation. He treats her marriage as a transaction he must oversee. Her first night with Drogo is quiet. He speaks only one clear word. That word is no. Everything Daenerys experiences in this period teaches her one lesson after another. She is not in control. She is not protected. She is entering a life chosen for her by others. These early experiences create a foundation that influences every choice she makes later when she gains power. What follows shapes her mind with an intensity that the show presents through clear and painful events. At first, Daenerys moves through the Dothraki world with uncertainty. She studies their customs in silence. She observes their routines to avoid making mistakes that could offend them. She adjusts her posture, her clothing, and her speech based on what she sees around her. She understands that survival requires adaptation. She does not yet understand how these adaptations will form a new identity. Gradually, Daenerys begins to claim small amounts of control within her marriage. She learns the Dothraki language. She learns how to speak to Drogo in a way that lets her express her own needs. These small moments of agency mark the beginning of her transformation. For the first time in her life, she experiences respect from someone who holds power. This is not simply emotional comfort. It becomes proof that she can influence her environment. When she becomes pregnant, her sense of purpose grows stronger. She believes the child will be a bridge between two worlds. She believes it will give her life direction. The Khalasar celebrates her pregnancy. Viserys becomes jealous, which exposes her to new danger. When he threatens her in front of her new protectors, the Khalasar humiliates him and forces him to walk. Drogo announces that no one threatens Daenerys. This moment marks a significant shift. She witnesses the difference between someone who uses her and someone who shields her. This contrast affects her ability to judge loyalty in the future. Her relationship with power continues to evolve. When she protects a village of enslaved women taken during a raid, she refuses to let them be harmed. She argues with the riders who expect her to follow their customs without question. Drogo supports her. She gains confidence as she sees her choices influence the actions of an entire community. These early moral decisions form the roots of her leadership style. She believes she can change the world through force, combined with compassion. Her turning point arrives with betrayal. Mirri Maz Duur offers Daenerys comfort after the raid. Daenerys accepts her because she wants to protect others. She believes she is doing the right thing. The show then reveals the cost of misplaced trust. Mirri performs a ritual that leaves Drogo unresponsive. The child Daenerys carries does not survive. Daenerys loses her husband and her son in the same chain of events. She learns that mercy can invite danger. She learns that kindness can be used against her. These realizations change her completely. When she places Drogo on the funeral pyre, she steps into the flames without fear. She emerges with the 3 newly hatched dragons. This moment is not only a rebirth, it becomes the emotional anchor that replaces everything she lost. The dragons become symbols of survival. They become proof that she can endure pain and rise with even greater strength. Her trauma and her losses create rigid beliefs that guide her for the rest of her journey. She concludes that the world only responds to strength. She concludes that betrayal must be answered with absolute action. She concludes that destiny belongs to those who force the world to acknowledge them. All of these convictions have grown from the wounds and lessons shown throughout her life. What happens next is the stage where those convictions are reinforced by constant praise, victory, and unwavering devotion from thousands of followers. After emerging from Drogo's pyre unharmed, Daenerys becomes the center of awe for the remaining members of the Khalasar. They kneel before her. Their expressions carry shock and reverence as they look at her with the 3 newly born dragons resting at her feet. This scene marks a major psychological shift. For the first time, Daenerys sees people kneel because they believe she is something extraordinary. This moment plants the idea that she is meant to change the world. It is not arrogance at this point. It is the beginning of a belief reinforced through every step of her rise. As the dragons grow, her influence expands. When she reaches Korth, the city's rulers are stunned by the sight of living dragons. They view her as someone tied to extraordinary power. Though some residents try to manipulate her, others praise her as a figure of destiny. Every door she enters adds more validation to her identity. She no longer sees herself as a powerless exile. She begins to see herself as someone shaped by fate. Her leadership takes clearer form when she arrives in Slaver's Bay. She witnesses cruelty and injustice throughout the region. She sees enslaved people beaten in the streets. She sees children nailed to posts as warnings. She responds with immediate force, driven by her belief that she must liberate the oppressed. She acquires the unsullied by outsmarting their master. When he insults her in his own language, she pretends not to understand. Once she secures command of the army, she commands her dragon to attack him. This decision demonstrates her evolving pattern. She rewards loyalty. She destroys cruelty. She acts with certainty rather than hesitation. The unsullied elevate her image further. Their discipline and devotion become symbols of her authority. Freed slaves kneel before her and call her Misa, a word meaning mother. They celebrate her as the person who broke their chains. These scenes strengthen the idea that she is chosen for a greater purpose. As her victories continue, her confidence becomes unshakable. She leads armies. She commands dragons. Entire cities chant her titles. Each success feeds the belief that she was meant to rise from the ashes of her childhood to reshape entire nations. This belief does not appear out of pride alone. It grows from years of pain replaced by triumph. People tell her she is the breaker of chains. People tell her she was born to rule. People tell her she is the answer to a broken world. Her identity evolves into something grand. She is no longer the frightened girl sold into marriage. She is no longer the sister threatened by Viserys. She becomes a figure surrounded by devotion. The more she is praised, the more she trusts the idea that she must continue forward at all costs. Every voice that kneels reinforces the conviction that she cannot turn away from the destiny she believes she carries. What began as a need for survival transforms into a confidence fueled by power. It becomes a belief that she is the only one capable of achieving justice. This belief strengthens as her influence grows, bringing her to the challenges she faces when she enters the land her family once ruled. The moment her feet touch Westerosi soil, the tone of her journey changes. Instead of praise and gratitude, she meets uncertainty, hesitation, and distrust from the people whose world she intends to reshape. When Daenerys arrives at Dragonstone, she enters a place filled with Targaryen history. The halls carry symbols of power, once held by her ancestors. Yet the island is empty. There are no crowds welcoming her. There are no soldiers offering allegiance. This scene creates a sharp contrast to the cities in Essos that celebrated her as a liberator. In Westeros, she begins without the emotional validation that shaped her confidence for years. Her first major test comes when she seeks alliances with northern leaders and southern houses. She expects cooperation because she believes her claim to the throne is legitimate. Instead, she encounters suspicion. In the north, the people greet her with silence and guarded stares. They value independence. They value loyalty built through shared history. They do not see her as a savior. They see her as a foreign ruler arriving with armies and dragons. This reception unsettles Daenerys because it contradicts everything she has grown to expect from those she intends to help. Her relationship with Jon Snow adds another layer of complexity. Daenerys sees him as a potential ally, shaped by honor. She respects him for his willingness to negotiate for the survival of his people. Over time, she develops a personal attachment that she rarely expresses openly. When Jon bends the knee, Daenerys feels a renewed sense of certainty. Yet this feeling does not last. When she learns about his parentage and his bloodline, she faces a new threat. Jon becomes someone who holds a claim that rivals her own. His presence begins to draw support that once belonged to her. She sees people look at him with admiration that they never extend to her. As she continues seeking loyalty in Westeros, she loses key figures who once anchored her emotionally. Jorah Mormont, her closest protector, dies fighting for the living. His final moments show him giving his life without hesitation. His absence leaves a gap in her inner circle. Missandei is captured and executed. Her death occurs in front of Daenerys, who watches helplessly from a distance. This loss strikes at the heart of her identity because Missandei represented companionship without judgment. When Tyrion begins making errors that weaken her strategy, Daenerys loses trust in him. One by one, the people she relied on disappear. Her world shrinks. In Westeros, Daenerys is surrounded by people who study her with caution rather than admiration. Every step she takes is measured against politics she did not grow up with. She sees council members whisper. She sees soldiers hesitate. She sees nobles weigh their loyalty. She sees Jon become a figure people instinctively follow. These developments feed the suspicion that begins growing inside her. Her experiences in Westeros do not mirror the path she walked in Essos. Instead of being lifted by the praise of the liberated, she moves through halls where every conversation hides a calculation. She senses betrayal even before it arrives. She sees people protect Jon with a loyalty she cannot access. She sees alliances crumble. Her confidence begins to erode as isolation tightens around her. Her struggle in Westeros becomes the spark that pushes her toward the edge of fear and suspicion that will define her next decisions. Every mistake from her advisors, every whisper behind closed doors, and every familiar glance directed at Jon Snow deepens the sense that she is losing control of her destiny. Daenerys enters this stage of her journey, surrounded by pressure from every direction. She carries the weight of a war against the dead. She carries the pressure of a looming conflict against Cersei Lannister. She carries the responsibility of protecting armies that look to her for leadership. Yet she carries all of this without the emotional foundation she once relied on. The people who understood her, supported her, and anchored her thinking are gone. Her losses are not abstract. They are shown on screen with painful clarity. She watches Jorah die protecting her. She watches Missandei taken hostage and executed. She watches her second dragon fall from the sky during an ambush on the sea. Each event strikes at her ability to trust the world around her. Her political challenges intensify these emotional wounds. Tyrion begins making choices that weaken her position. His plans fail in ways that cost lives and territory. Daenerys starts to question whether his loyalty is steady. Varys communicates privately with Jon Snow about leadership. He believes Jon would inspire more confidence in Westeros. These conversations feed Daenerys' fear that her council may abandon her. When she confronts Tyrion about Varys, her tone changes from disappointment to suspicion. She no longer sees mistakes. She sees possible betrayal. The people of Westeros deepen this tension. They hesitate to stand behind her. They turn toward Jon with respect that they do not extend to her. Every friendly gesture toward him appears to her as confirmation that she is being replaced. The show presents this repeatedly through silent scenes where Daenerys watches Jon receive praise. These moments build her belief that affection, loyalty, and trust are slipping out of her reach. Her isolation grows stronger when Jon creates emotional distance. She tells him that she needs his love. He withdraws because of the truth about his bloodline. Daenerys interprets this as another form of loss. At the same time, she sees the impact Jon has on the people around them. This combination pushes her deeper into fear. She begins to believe that no one in Westeros will choose her unless she enforces obedience. These pressures merge during the final stages of the war. When she stands on Dragonstone, her posture and tone reflect a clear change. Her voice carries exhaustion and certainty at the same time. She no longer speaks about hope. She speaks about necessity. She believes she must rule because peace depends on her vision. She decides that fear will succeed where trust has failed. She believes that only a decisive act can secure her place and end resistance forever. The tragedy of her final decision is built through everything the show presents. Daenerys reaches a point where fear and power fuse inside her mind. She sees enemies everywhere. She sees betrayal as inevitable. She sees mercy as a risk she can no longer afford. When the bells ring in King's Landing, the war is already won. Yet she interprets the moment through years of loss, distrust, and suspicion. She believes that ending potential threats requires a display of overwhelming force. Her final actions reveal the culmination of her journey. They are the product of trauma, power, isolation, and fear, converging at the worst possible moment. Daenerys does not choose destruction because of a single impulse. She chooses it because every experience has pushed her toward a belief that only absolute dominance can secure the future she envisions. This is the final stage of a psychological arc shaped entirely by what the show depicts. A girl who once survived through obedience becomes a woman who believes the world must obey her to survive. Daenerys' journey reminds us all that power does not protect people from their past. It magnifies every wound. It magnifies every fear. It magnifies every conviction that formed, long before the world ever saw them as rulers. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit like and subscribe. Here, we break down the stories, psychology, and hidden layers behind the most iconic characters in TV and film. Share your thoughts in the comments to keep the discussion going. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.